I'm the co-author of a book called The Decoded Company, and the book really explores how companies can use data to better understand their employees and to ultimately create better, happier, more productive work cultures. Yeah, so the whole reason we wrote the book was that we believe that in today's labor market, talent is the most important thing. And if companies want to succeed, they're going to need the best people. And if you want the best people, you need to have a company that they would want to work for. So the way that you create that type of company, what one of my co-authors calls a center of gravity for talent, is to become a place where people aren't micromanaged, where people are happy and engaged and productive, and where they feel like they have the ability to develop and to learn new things. And in order to do that, you can't just close your eyes and wish that it happens. You need a scientific process to do that. And so we believe that data is the best way for companies to create phenomenal workplaces. Sure. So a couple of years ago, Google created an experiment that they called Project Oxygen. And what they wanted to do was they wanted to see what their best managers had in common from an analytic perspective. So they took a few months and they gathered over 10,000 data points, everything from exit interviews, performance reviews, surveys, everything that you can think of, to see what do their best managers do that is so different from everything else. They came up with a list of 8 values, and 8 values that their top managers shared. Now, the interesting thing was that on this list were things like being a good coach, having good technical skills, not micromanaging. It doesn't sound like it's anything extraordinary. But when they prioritized that list, it turns out that the most important thing was the ability to be a coach, and the least important thing was technical abilities. Now, why this is significant is that Google, for the longest time, was hiring managers based solely on technical experience. So the thing that was the least important, according to the data, was the most important that they were using to hire people. So not only did they change that practice and really focused on recruiting people who had good coaching abilities, they took those 8 values, they churned them into a training program that all of their employees use to help develop some of these qualities. And a year after implementing the program, they've noticed a big shift, with some managers improving by as much as 75%. So if you take that data, you can actually cultivate certain behaviors that improves everybody's work experience and makes better recruiting decisions. I mean, it's not so much of a specific example, but the reason why people are micromanaged is because for the longest time we didn't have enough data to see how people were doing. So the only way that you could measure how effective somebody was when did they come in, when did they leave, what they were working on. It was by somebody standing over your shoulder. And thanks to data, we don't have to do this anymore. We have the ability to work from home, we have the ability to work from a beach, we have the ability to produce work and show that we're producing work without necessarily being in the office. So one of the ways that data is helping to do this is by giving people the flexibility to go beyond traditional work processes. Data also shows how different people learn and how the different speeds that they do. So there's no reason to make everybody go through the same training program, in the same way. So this way, you have companies like Netflix, for example. Netflix does not have a set vacation policy. You can take as many vacation days as you want. Now, most people would think, oh, well, people are going to just never come to work. But you know what? That hasn't happened. Because when you put motivated people who are good at their jobs, who like what they do, they're not going to leave their team and go on vacation. And the result has been they've had no problems with this. And the CEO of Netflix, Reed Hastings, has a wonderful quote where Netflix also doesn't have a dress code policy. You can wear whatever you want. And he says, we don't have a dress code policy, but no one has come to work naked. And the idea being is that most people are mature, responsible adults. So why is it that in a lot of managerial ways, we treat people like children? If you have high performers, they're not going to want to be told what to do. So you need to create a company that gives them the opportunity to work fast, do amazing work, but on their terms instead of your terms. So Malcolm Gladwell had a very interesting experiment called the orchestra blind test that he wrote about. And the question was, he was wondering, why weren't there enough women being hired for these orchestra positions? So they did an experiment where they had the judges on one side and a big screen so they couldn't see the applicants, and then they did a blind audition. So the judges couldn't see who was doing what. And it turns out that when the judges evaluated performance just based on the performance itself, more women got offered more positions. It turns out that a lot of us have unconscious biases, things that we make, not in a mean way, but just ways that we make certain decisions. So what data can do is data can strip away all that bias and just focus on the thing that matters, which is the performance. The data doesn't care if you're a woman, it doesn't care if you come in at work at 10, it doesn't care if you take a 2-hour lunch break. The data looks at, are you getting the work done? Is the work of a good enough quality? Are you contributing to the business? So it actually protects employees in a lot of ways, because how many of us have had a manager who we didn't get along with, and then that manager gives you a bad review that impacts everything? Well, if you have objective data, then that subjective perspective doesn't tank your entire career. So I actually believe that when done in an ethical, transparent way that protects people's privacy, it can be an excellent way to ensure that people are actually more protected at work.